right, good afternoon and welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission on January 3rd, 2011. Happy New Year, everyone. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Jemian?
Present.
Commissioner Armenian?
Present.
Commissioner Chan?
Present.
Miller?
Present.
President Yao?
Present. Next item, please.
Item 2B, request to agendize diversity report.
Are there any revisions or comments?
This is for the minutes.
Yes, this is for item 2A.
Yes, I noticed there were a couple of typos. I just wanted to point them out. You could bear with me for a moment while I open the appropriate place. On the third page, in the first full paragraph, we mentioned the members of the committee that conducted the interview for the RFP, and for commission, it should say commissioner. And then also 2 paragraphs below that, on the last line, it says that the money at the end of the fiscal year would be transferred to the GWP reserves. And the word "to" has a P for the O. I think there was a missing verb or an error on one of the verbs earlier, but I wasn't able to find it anyway. You may want to look it over and make the correction of the typos. But that's all I had.
Any other suggestions or comments? If not, if you can make those typos and corrections, then we can move on. Is there a motion to approve?
I would make a motion that the minutes be approved as amended.
A second?
I second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item, please.
Item 2B,
Excuse me, let me, we're going to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to move 7A right up before 3 so that we have a speaker who needs to make that report before he leaves. So let's move to 7A to the next item.
Item 7A, request to agendize diversity report.
Mr. President and members of the Commission, the City Attorney, Mr. Scott Howard, is here and will be presenting some information on this topic to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I've understood from my staff that over the last couple of meetings there have been requests to agendize a diversity report. I'm not certain precisely what that is, but I'm prepared to address it if it is as I understand it. And so I really do have a question for the Commission at the outset, and that is, what is a diversity report? What type of diversity report is the Commission looking at? Is it looking, for example, at a report that reflects a discussion of the diversity by and amongst or between operations employees, traders, or power plant individuals, or are we talking about a diversity report in the context that it is commonly understood, and that is based on the diversity within a workplace based upon gender, ethnic background, racial background, or national origin? And so I can respond to each differently, obviously, depending upon what it is that's been requested.
Well, at this point, if you want to entertain questions from the Commission, is that appropriate at this point, or you have a report?
No, I'm happy to entertain the question because obviously one issue falls fairly, I won't say squarely, but fairly within a broad definition of the powers and duties of the Commission, and another falls outside your jurisdiction on a number of levels.
Well, let's just recap just from the minutes from last month. We were talking about one issue about report. It's more workforce report. Diversity is part of that workforce we were trying to get at, and I think Commissioner Miller was mentioning something about succession planning as part of this report, and I think Commissioner Armenian was wondering some kind of diversity in more than just ethnicity. It's just diversity of overall workforce.
Yeah, obviously you can look at diversity from many different aspects, but especially from the perspective of workforce planning, succession. You have an retirement bubble in this industry, meaning the utility industry. How is it that, kind of what does that picture look like from a GWP perspective, especially as we kind of came up in the context of as the entire business is evolving and changing into a higher tech business. in order to meet the demands of the operations, how are we doing that sort of planning? I was very initially also interested in a broader perspective of the diversity, but I understand that there are some limitations in terms of the scope. So perhaps it would also be helpful from your perspective, what is permissible in terms of being in scope in the context of what I discussed, which is the more of the succession planning and the workforce planning perspective of the topic.
That's been very helpful, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner Armenian. That clarification is extremely important and very helpful. I think within your powers and duties broadly construed to provide advice to the city manager and the council on the plant operations and the plant's effectiveness, also financing and the management of plants in that regard. I think an issue of broad-based succession planning, not specifically in terms of what type of employee belongs here, what type of employee belongs there, but in the broader terms of how it affects the overall plant operations within the context of the management of and operations of both the plant and GWP. I think that would be something that you could have some type of a discussion on. Again, more broader parameters. Where your care needs to be taken is that this commission doesn't begin to encroach on the specifics of recruitment, selection, hiring, etc. That's within the Civil Service Commission. On the issue of what I'll call protected class employment, there's been a number of cases, not the least of which is Article 1, Section 31 of our own state constitution, which severely limits, if not completely constrains you from getting into issues of recruitment and selection based upon race, national origin, ethnicity, and the like. That was Prop 209. It's been upheld by the courts. Our Supreme Court has talked about it in the context of both civil service employment in the Connerly case as well as in contracting. We're very limited in what we can do there. In fact, what I've advised the Civil Service Commission and the HR director is that even targeted outreach in a case involving San Jose was under fire, and the court was inclined. San Jose did some good fancy footwork to avoid it, but even that, the court was very skeptical of targeted outreach because there's an argument you're favoring one group over another in violation of Article 1, Section 31. But succession planning with that clarification, I think, again, on that broad bubble as you spoke of with the potential looming retirements and the impact on the industry and the technology that is continuing to advance throughout this industry, I think is something that would be consistent with the powers and operations under 2.72 of the Municipal Code.
So at this point, can we still get a report on succession planning and what management is planning to do in terms of workforce replacement?
As it affects the operation and financing of water and power and its operations, that would be something certainly within the Commission's powers and duties.
What this commission is looking?
Yes, it was what I recall asking, and as documented in the minutes of the last meeting.
So thank you for coming in here, Mr. Howard.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
So I think we can agendize that portion of it for a future meeting. That would be great.
Was there any other issue that I've also heard that there was a potential question about a report that I'm issuing to the City Council about the water transfer under our charter as it collides with Proposition 218. I can give you a 30-second note on that. That report was actually intended to be on the agenda for tomorrow in front of the City Council tomorrow night. It is strictly a legal issue, and that is whether or not our charter continues to permit the mandatory transfer of 25%, it's language used out of the charter, of the water surplus fund, not the electric, water surplus fund, to the general fund at the conclusion of the fiscal year. There have been a number of cases under Proposition 218 which has caused us to have to evaluate that. That council specifically requested that report from me. That's why my report goes directly to the council. Again, it's strictly a legal issue over the council's continued power and authority to make that transfer as they're mandated to do under the charter. That's been delayed because of some additional information that's being compiled by the Finance Department that is now scheduled for either February 8th or February 15th.
Well, that item's not on the agenda, but if you want to give us a preview of it.
I do. I am not permitted to give you a preview of that for two reasons. One, it is not on the agenda, and two, this is a report I'm doing for the City Council related to a specific legal issue involving the City Council's authority. That report will be available both to you and members of the public as soon as it's completed and we have it all put together, and I would hope it will be at least a week before the meeting.
Right. No, we made that request so that once the council member has a chance to review it and move forward with that, then it will be presented into this commission.
There certainly may be a need for this commission to then sort of look at, okay, what happens now
Right.
in the wake of that report. But at this point in time, that report is strictly a legal analysis, and another component of that's part of what the cases have suggested under Prop 218 that we can do is related to Prop 218. And so I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a preview, but it's a folding together of both the legal analysis of my assessment of the cases that interpret Proposition 218 as well as our charter language, and what the courts have said, things that you can do. Council's going to be looking at making the policy decision on whether or not they can continue making the transfer. What happens next, I think this commission should be able to play and should play a role in.
Okay, so we'll wait for that assessment next month.
And that's my target, is to get that thing, get it before the City Council by the latest the 15th. We're targeting the 8th and the 15th.
Any other questions for Mr. Howard?
Thanks for coming before.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Okay, then we'll back to the reports. Next item, please.
Item 3, reports information. 3A, update, water rate redesign. Bill Fox.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about our water rates redesign update. And this is something that you've asked periodically until we implement our new rate design. You wanted to get updates on a monthly basis, so consider this the first update in a series. As far as our RFP process went, we went ahead and sent out proposals to 15 different qualified firms that were California-based firms that specialize in doing water rate design type studies. We did receive 9 responses. Quite interestingly, of the 9 responses that we received, 8 of them were actually from the solicited firms, and we received 1 proposal that was unsolicited. The unsolicited proposal came as a result of us posting our RFP on our website to allow other firms that were interested in bidding to give them the opportunity. So we did receive 1 unsolicited proposal response. We did review each of the 9 proposals that we received in depth. We followed each of the elements according to our RFP outline to make sure that the RFPs were responsive. We then did a scoring internally of the top firms and ranked them from 1 to 9, and then we did a cutoff and just picked the top 6 firms for interview. The top 6 firms for interview are listed alphabetically, as you can see here, and I also put the dollar amounts related to each of the firms. One thing you could note is the fact that the dollars are kind of all over the board, and the reason for that is twofold. The firms, in some cases, put more hours to different tasks that we had identified in our RFP. And secondly, there was a difference in the hourly rates that some of the firms billed. But in the end, what we did is we used that information to help us gauge which firms to interview. The interview process consisted of a 5-member panel, and the panel consisted of 5 different people, including 2 of our GWP commissioners, Chairman Yao as well as Mr. Miller, and we appreciate your participation. In addition, we had their City Finance Director, Bob Elliott, the Water Services Principal Engineer, Patrick Hayes, and then myself. And I'll tell you that I thought it was a very good panel from the standpoint that each of us brought different perspectives to the process. The 6 firms that were interviewed ended up in what we call a 1-hour format, and the format consisted of first an overview presentation and suggested approach by the various consulting firms on how they would tackle the assignment. And then followed by that, we had 9 pre-designed questions that had been vetted out ahead of time by each of us that were involved in the panel process. At the conclusion, we had a scoring sheet where we rated the firms and came up with a overall weighting, if you will. And then finally, we did a deliberation. And through the deliberation process, we were able to reach a consensus. The consensus was that Willdan Financial Services was the firm that we selected. Our current schedule has not changed from the last time that you had an opportunity to review it. The interviews have been completed, and we have a report that will be going to City Council on January 11th. At that time, we'll be making the recommendation from the panel to select Willdan Financial Services. And following that, if they are selected with the blessing of City Council, we will begin work on January 17th. And we look very much forward to having the opportunity to get this process started. As you can see, it's going to be about a 6-month process from beginning to end. With that, if there's any questions or comments, I did include in the back of the presentation a short blurb on Willdan Financial Services to give you an oversight. They are a national firm, and they've got quite an extensive client list, and they have done work with the City of Glendale in the past.
Yeah, two things. I thought it would be helpful for you to give kind of a summary as to why Willdan was chosen, particularly since they weren't the lowest bid.
Willdan was chosen for a couple of different reasons. They were the next to the lowest bid, as you could see. We felt that their team that they had assembled had a lot of good experience, had done these types of studies in the past. And the firm that had been the lowest bid was also very well qualified, but there was a level of concern that we had because it was a small firm consisting of a very few people that we felt if something were to happen to one of the principals on the engagement, we wouldn't be able to get the work done on time. So that was one of the strikes against them. But there was what we saw through that process is 3 firms clearly stood out among the top. And there was 3 firms that we felt that were not as qualified.
So the primary issue as to why you didn't go lowest bid is because of that principal issue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Will your presentation on January 11th to City Council include the professional services agreement, or is that being crafted afterwards?
The professional services agreement has already been crafted.
Okay.
We typically don't put the contract in the staff report, but we do make reference to it.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that the criteria of MeeBee were met, a good faith effort, minority, women-owned business, those things were considered?
We consider that any time that we're doing proposals. In this particular process, what we did do is we went one step further. Is we did a survey. We took a survey results from the Municipal Finance Officers Association, and what they do is they survey qualified firms that they've done work with in the past, and we were able to gather from their prior survey results the firms that were most qualified to do this type of work.
Commissioner Chan, with respect to MeeBee, though, that's not a Glendale requirement. And getting back to what Scott had, Mr. Howard had mentioned, there are some limitations now that prevent us from doing that.
One of the top firms that we had happened to fall in that category, and were highly considered.
Well, I just want to comment that it was a great process, and thank you for the invitation. It was a great learning experience for us, too, to go through a city process to select a vendor. So, opportunity for us as well as a learning opportunity, and I think we made the right choice in that.
Thank you. I would like to say that through the process, I was better able to get to know both of you, and I thought that was great because we all were able to come together and come up with a good decision.
I'd also like to thank the utility for having us involved in the evaluation process. It was very educational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, then, Fox.
Thank you.
Item, please.
Item 3B, Electric Reliability Report, 5-year update. Henry Abrari on behalf of Ramona Blake.
Chairman Yao, members of the Commission, my name is Henry Abrari. I'm the Principal Electrical Engineer. I'm here today to give you the 5-year reliability report and our December 2010 update on what the outage situation was and how the system reliability was. The outline of this presentation is we're going to be reviewing the December 2010 outages. That will actually include the December rainstorm and our last week's windstorm and our 5-year reliability performance, which includes the outage causes, indices, and projects and programs. Our indices, our SAFE, System Average Interruption Frequency Index, is a measure of how many unscheduled outages a GWP customer may experience during a 12-month period. For the month of December, our SAFE was 0.93, which is below our goal of 1.0, and that we've been trying to keep it below 1.0, and that's great. Our next indices is our Sadie, our System Average Interruption Duration Index, which is the average time that a customer service may be interrupted as a result of an unscheduled outage. And our Sadie number was 33 minutes. We tried to keep that under 40 minutes, which we are well within that parameter. Our next index is our KD numbers, our Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, which is the actual duration that a customer service is interrupted during an unscheduled outage. Our KD number is 36 minutes, and we try to keep that under the goal of 40 minutes, and we are below that. The windstorm of, as far as the storm of December 17 to December 23rd, we did not have any major outages. We had a few secondary or service outages, and that was because of trees getting into tree to the lines or getting into the service wires, and some customers actually having their own main breakers trip, which is on their side and is outside of our system area. However, our windstorm of December 29 and 30th to 30th, I would say that we were ending the year with a bang. We had wind gusts of more than 50 miles per hour, which was quite heavy. We had 7 major outages. Our number 5 Rossmoyne had 5 outages. First outage was for 35 minutes, and the cause was palm fronds getting into lines. Next one was for 5 minutes, and the cause was unknown. 18 minutes. For the third outage, cause was unknown. 7 minutes for the fourth outage, and the cause was palm fronds. Total number of outages, total number of customers affected was 1,510. Number 3, Western, was another feeder that was affected. We had an outage for 32 minutes. The partial recovery actually was in 32 minutes, but the full recovery of that feeder was in 4 hours and 1 minute. The full recovery affected 50 customers. The cause was unknown, and because of the outage, we think a fault occurred that actually took a pole switch out, and that pole switch got repaired, and the total number of customers affected was 2795. The next outage was for our tropical Western number 10 feeder. That outage was for 19 minutes, cause was unknown, and 585 customers affected. Number 14 tropical was the next feeder affected. That was 15. That outage was for a duration of 15 minutes. The cause was unknown, and 1,072 customers were affected. And again, there were a number of secondary outages as a result of blown fuses on transformers, and the repairs and recovery of this smaller outages generally were delayed because we were trying to get to our bigger outages, and then once those were taken care of, then we would get to the smaller outages. This is a good example of, I believe it's a ficus tree that had fell on the power lines. As you can see, that the telephone cable is actually holding it up, and by pushing the telephone communication cable down, was putting a tremendous amount of strain on the poles that were supporting it and our lines. And public works contractors got into action and took the tree out. Our 5-year performance report. The first look we're going to have on this report is, you see the pie chart as on the presentation. I'm going to just touch on maybe 5 of the major reasons why we had these outages. I think balloons at 12% and squirrels at 12%, those were 2 major reasons for our outages. We had overhead wire contact wind was 44 outages, that's 12.9%. Equipment failure was 52. Cause of that would be transformers or cables failing or switches in our vaults or elbows failing as part of our equipment. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation and what we're doing about that. And we also had 16.4% or 56 outages that the cause was unknown. And we had a number of those outages during our windstorm as well. And reason for that is, trees touch the lines touch each other, and we get a circuit breaker that trips out the line, and when our crews go out there, they patrol the line, they don't find anything. A lot of times these are wind-related or vegetation-related. If we look at our 5-year performance as far as the primary outages for the past 5 years, definitely a huge improvement over 2006, where we had over 115 outages, 118, I believe. Yeah, 116 outages, and that has reduced tremendously to, for 2010, that's about 51, and that's been quite an accomplishment. We contribute that to our programs, our capital programs, and our employees for keeping the system going. The next slide that you'll see is actually a couple of graphs that we have. These graphs, one was the customer minutes out. That's the total number of minutes out for all our customers. And for 2006, that was about 180,000 minutes. And again, that has improved quite a bit and is down to about 46,000 minutes for the total number of minutes that our customers were out. So 46,000 for 2010. And we also had number of primary outages to be at 116 in 2006, and that number has reduced to 51 for this past year, 2010. Our safety numbers for the year, for 2006, we were at 2.67%, and we've reduced that to 0.93, which is below our goal of 1.0. And the same is for our Sadie numbers. Our numbers for 2006 was 129 minutes, and we're down to 33 minutes for 2010. Our KD numbers for 2006, we were at 48.7, and we are down to 35.8 minutes per actually customer affected. Now, what are some of the things that we're doing to actually achieve the improvements that you see we've achieved? And actually, if we go back one more year, in 2005, the numbers were actually worse than 2006. So we've achieved quite a bit. We would be contributing that to, number one, our tree trimming program. Our crews we actually have a contract with an outside contractor that goes out and basically goes through the whole system, makes sure the trees are trimmed, they're they're not interfering with our lines, and that's been very aggressive and very successful. Our feeder reconstruction program, we've had quite a few of our feeders converted to 12 kV, and anytime you do that, you put in new equipment, in addition to the fact that the 12,000 volt lines versus 4,000 volt lines, we have more clearance between the lines, and what that does is that it actually helps us during wind conditions. When these wires are slapping together, you have more of a clearance to deal with, or your insulators are bigger, so you have better clearances. Your outages will actually improve. Our feeder refusing, this is, as you may, feeder refusing, basically what we are doing is that in the past, if there was a fault on a feeder, pretty much the breaker in the substation would take the whole feeder out and put a number of people out of service. But by trying to sectionalize the actual feeders and having different segments on the feeders, we've been able to localize any fault areas, and when a fault occurs, it actually only takes out the last half or the last portion of the feeder that this fault occurs in, and it keeps the rest of the people in service. And that reduces the number of outages for quite a few of our customers, and it also keeps the outage time lower. That's an aggressive program that we have currently, and we are pursuing that in our 5-year CIP program as we go ahead. Also, new technologies. That's one thing that we've been talking about. Is we've been talking about distribution automation and what that actually can do for us. Distribution automation, we have outage management programs where we are actually monitoring all our feeders at all the times, and we make sure that if an outage happens, by having automated reclosers online and having control of those reclosers, we can actually again limit the outage to a certain area and try to energize portions of the feeder from adjoining neighboring feeders, and that's how we can minimize the number of outages on a feeder, or a number of other new technologies available that would help us having fault indicators online that will communicate with us, that will tell our crews where they think the fault has occurred. They can pinpoint where the fault is, and they can dispatch the crews to that area a lot sooner than if they had to monitor the whole feeder area and go up and down the streets trying to look for it. As far as the next item is basically a disturbance monitors. We have currently we've installed 4 disturbance monitors and our 4 substations: Rossmoyne, Kellogg, Western, and Tropical. And basically, what that does is that anytime there's a fault, we get notified exactly what phase that fault was on, what feeder it was on. Our dispatch, actually personnel, get paged, they get an email that tells them when it happened, what happened. Our engineers get emails, so it's really helping everyone to pinpoint where the problem is, and it would help us remedy the problem as soon as possible. The last item for us is the projects that we have at our substations. The projects we have at our substations, we have a circuit breaker replacement program where we replace 3 circuit breakers a year, and we are aggressively pursuing that. We've replaced 6 circuit switchers, capacitor switches in our substations. We also have a program to update our relays with microprocessor-based relays. These are smart relays that can, again, communicate with each other and with us remotely. So we can actually, go at a computer terminal and call out that relay and know exactly what's going on and where the fault was. And we have a transformer replacement program where we go in and we replace our aging equipment. And one item that is not listed here, but we also have a very aggressive program to replace our aging equipment in our distribution system, such as our feeder conductors that are more than 30 years old, and we aggressively go in and replace those, replace the switches, replace the elbows, and our junctions, and that will help us immensely in limiting the number of equipment failure that we actually have on our equipment. And that's about it, and I entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the very educational presentation. In the past, we've had similar presentations, and it's been helpful to elaborate for the audience how the goals were set up for Sadie and Sadie and so on. Can you repeat that, even though it's been said in previous meetings, but just for the benefit of viewers?
The goals were set as part of our strategic planning program, and those are some of the goals that we met, and we decided that these are some nice goals for us to meet.
Are we looking at marginal costs here versus marginal benefit? For example, that the last outage that we're saving is going to pay itself off by the benefits that are obtained. Are those used in formulating our goals at all? I see that the director's nodding.
Correct.
Okay.
In initially putting this plan together, the cost benefit was substantial, as you might imagine, if you go
Yes.
back and take a look at those numbers. And of course, as you're mentioning, as you get closer to the incremental piece, does that cost benefit still apply? And the answer is yes, because as we move ahead, we are able to put fewer dollars into maintaining the system. As long as we maintain it in the manner that we've put forth in the strategic plan, it's very, very cost beneficial, because we've already put our major investment in 3 to 5 years ago.
On the other hand, lowering the goals wouldn't be beneficial because it would cost too much, I take it as that.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because as we move forward, and one of the things that Henry mentioned is new technology. And so as we put in new technology, the benefit of having increased reliability, again, is cost beneficial because of the new technology.
So we may be reevaluating our goals as the strategic plan gets reformulated, I take it.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is, do we have any information on customer perception or satisfaction with the goals? I take it that complaints would be one measure, but often that's just relying on the customer to contact us. Do we have any information where we may have solicited customer perceptions on this issue?
Well, it's a good idea. I think that's one thing that we can do, but we are also actively going through the phone calls we've received during this period, and we are kind of filtering that, and we'll update you on what the nature of those calls were and how the customers perceived our activities.
If the goals get reformulated, I would think those are two important principles to guide us in reformulating them. One, to make sure that we're looking at marginal cost being offset by marginal benefits, and then secondly, what customer perceptions there may be. That's all I had. Thank you.
I also want to mention that we don't want to set a goal where it's maybe out of the ballpark where it was so much better than everyone else. I mean, I don't think it makes sense too. We want to make sure we're better than people, but not so much better than where we spend so much money trying to get there. So can you give us some idea how we compare to other utilities in terms of these goals and where we are?
I think we are pretty much in line with other utilities as the goals that we've set. We are pretty much in line, but I don't have the numbers with me right now. But we can bring that to you and update you on that.
Sounds like we're relatively a little bit better than other utilities and
Yes.
reliability.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Forward to continue these reports where it shows a good trend. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
All right. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item 3C, Strategic Plan, Quarterly Scoreboard Update. Glenn Steiger.
President Yao, members of the Commission, what I'd like to do is give you a brief update on where we are currently with our strategic plan, key result areas and our goals. And just to give you a sense of where we are, the vast majority of our key result areas are either on schedule or ahead of schedule. You'll notice the red areas indicate the areas where we're behind. And for the most part, those areas are behind due to the fact that the economic conditions in Glendale and the rest of the country have changed since we put this strategic plan together. And we've had to either delay or extend the amount of time it takes to achieve some of the goals that we have here. But for the most part, we're right where we expect to be, and as I said, in a number of cases, we're actually ahead. What I'll do is I'll just highlight some of those areas that I think are important to understand that do have an impact on where we are.
Pardon my interruption, but just to clarify for the audience, the yellow means that we're on schedule, and the green means we're ahead of schedule.
Yellow is on schedule, green's ahead of schedule, red is behind schedule. That's correct.
Pardon the interruption, yeah.
If you notice at the very... Get this one, maybe this one. At the top of underwater supply, where we produce over 3,000 acre-feet from the Verdugo Basin, shows that we're ahead of schedule. And in fact, we are. We are currently developing 2 additional wells in that basin, and puts us ahead of schedule. If you notice, our schedule showed December of 2014. We're well ahead of that schedule. So that's one area where we've made substantial progress beyond where we thought. On the other hand, right below that, serving 2,500 acre-feet of recycled water, we're behind schedule. And we're behind schedule for a number of reasons. We have planned the full design of the recycled water system. However, again, due to financial constraints, we've delayed the implementation and development of that entire project. So that will remain to be seen as to when, in fact, we'll do our final build-out. But at this moment, we are behind schedule to achieve that goal by December 2013. That's one of the goals that we will reassess later this year when we do our reassessment of the strategic plan, which we'll do in the second quarter of this year, and then make course corrections, reassessments, so that by the beginning of fiscal year 2011-12, we will have additional and revised dates, and in some cases, actual key result areas and goals. So that will reflect those areas. Many of the other areas, as I said, are on schedule. I won't go through all of them. In the power supply area, we are well ahead of schedule. Actually, we're on schedule, but ahead of schedule by reducing electrical usage, having a plan in place to reduce efficiency or to increase efficiency but reduce heat rate in the Grayson Power Plant. Given what has just occurred with AB 32 regulations, we are certainly on track to meet our greenhouse gas emissions to 1990 levels by 2020. In fact, we're probably ahead there, and I'll explain why in a second. We are absolutely on track to achieve a balanced portfolio in energy, and this relates back to our renewable energy portfolio. That is our main methodology for achieving a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We are currently at 24%. 24% is well beyond the average right now. In fact, at this moment, Glendale has the highest level of renewables of any Southern California. So we are in very, very good position right now to meet those goals. Under customer service, one of the areas that we do constantly monitor and survey is the satisfaction of our customers with our service in general. Now, while we don't necessarily specifically ask about outages, outages certainly do relate back to here in many cases in an indirect way. We are consistently above average for the municipal utilities in the entire state. Each year, California Municipal Utilities Association does a series of surveys. They're updated each year. They survey all the municipal systems, and then they tailor them for individual systems. We consistently, and this year is no different, are above average in that area, but we strive to do even better. In the rates area, I think this is interesting. As you know, we had some difficult times this year in the area of water rates, and we have committed to keeping our water rates at or below 80% of the average rates in the area. Even with the increase that we just put in place, we are still within that range. So we are on schedule, and we continue to do so in the water area. On the electrical side, we put a stretch goal in there, if you recall, to be 35% below our neighboring investor-owned utility, California Edison. We're not 35% below, but we've made substantial progress in the last year. In the last year, from January 1st of last year till right now, today, we have reduced our electric rates by 11%. Done so through a number of different strategies. The biggest single strategy was the purchase of the Shoal Canyon landfill gas project, which immediately gave us a 9% reduction and again has contributed to the 2% reduction that we just put in place days ago. We are currently, we've reduced 11%. Our rates now on the residential side range anywhere from a minimum of 10% below Edison to a maximum of 21%. And the reason I give you that range is because our rates are not exactly classified and structured like Edison's rate. Can't make a direct comparison, but we are anywhere from 10, making fairly good progress in that area, and that's.
And so if Edison raises their rates, does that automatically qualify you to capture that difference, or do you then adjust your goal?
No, we took that into consideration, so we take credit for that.
Okay. It'll be a gift from us to you.
Yes, thank you. I think it's going to take a year for that to happen, though, isn't it? Yeah. We're doing a substantial amount of work right now in our trading area, and you'll hear a little bit more later on from Steve Linz about that, so I won't go into too much detail, but we are enhancing our trading group to allow us to continue to increase the wholesale revenue as we've put forward here so that we can achieve the $10 million in wholesale revenue that we put our goal in place for. And again, we're on target for that so far. One of the largest issues for us, as I've mentioned in the past, was the electrical system losses, where we've identified substantial losses for our electric system, far higher than the average, far higher than normal. We, with our smart grid system, have already started to eat away at that. Just by the fact that we are out changing out meters, we are finding theft of service that we didn't know existed, and that's one of the larger areas that's included in there. On the water infrastructure, reduce accounted for water to 5%. We've been ahead of schedule, as I understand it, for this last quarter. We slipped a little bit there. But again, smart meters will reverse that trend dramatically because our smart water system has leak detection in it. So we expect that number to drop dramatically. And
Is that good for that one? Because on page 19, it shows that the unaccounted for water is at 7.6% now.
that's correct, yeah, and that's why I said it dropped.
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe they were just, because it shows green, but then page 19 shows red.
That's correct. In this one area, we somehow dropped it for the last quarter.
But this reporting period is for that quarter, so should that be red then?
Well, what we don't have, see, we're using this quarter because we have all results in for this one quarter. We don't have all results in for the final quarter because we just ended it as of Friday. So we're being consistent here, but you're 100% right. There were one or two areas that changed. That was one area that changed, 7%. Fully expect that to drop way back down once.
Or should be green then?
Yeah, oh yes, yeah. You just heard about our Sadie and Katie areas for outages, and again, as you saw from Henry's presentation, for the most part, we're ahead of where we expected to be. We have dropped back, and we are behind schedule on upgrading our transmission system to 60. That is strictly a budgetary issue. This is one of the areas that we've had to push out beyond our 5-year horizon. Originally, it stayed within the 5-year horizon. It's now out to, at our last look at this, 2017. So that's why we're behind schedule there, and we will do a course correction on our next iteration of this plan. The other areas are all within. One of the areas that we continue to have issues with are our workforce, job satisfaction, safety. Safety is a little, rather than the OSHA incident rate of 2 or less that we are striving for, we're somewhere around 3 at this moment, which is higher than we'd like to be, and we consistently have preventable motor vehicle accidents. So again, in all of these areas, except for the vacancy rate, and I believe this particular quarter, we're also above the 5%. So all of these areas right now are behind, and we're addressing them. These are areas of concern for us, obviously.
Can you, what do you attribute the employee satisfaction issues to?
Salary issues primarily, and what happens is because the salary issues, a topical issue, it paints. So we're looking at that. Starting to look at salary survey for all of GWP to see where.
But then this fiscal year, didn't the city council salary including GWP?
It did. Yeah, we've been frozen for 2 years.
Will you consider that as a result of the satisfaction as a result of that?
Yeah, the issue we have here is that while we're consistent with the city, we're not consistent with other utilities. That's our issue. It's the deviation between our salary levels and our municipal utilities, or even the investor-owned utilities. Gap. That. Under systems, you'll hear more about our smart grid system, but again, we show it being on time, on schedule. We're actually ahead of schedule there. So, but we'll hear much more later on. Craig Keenan, that update. We've moved ahead in our area with our issues on Department of Finance, with our own Department of Finance, and Bill Fox has done an excellent job of bringing these processes together. We have a much smoother flow now than we did just 2 years ago. Area of finance, much better. So we're ahead of schedule there. And for the most part, everything else that we have identified as our key areas are at minimum on schedule. very, very pleased. I won't go through all of those. But what I'd like to do is just mention a couple of areas that that worked well for us in the past year, garnered some awards for us. And you may recall, but I'll just to bring it to your attention, due to our increasing level of reliability, as you've noticed, we have been nationally recognized for that. On the water side, we received the National Gold Award for exceptional utility performance. On the electric side, the American Public Power Association awarded us with its RP3 Award for Excellence in Reliable Operations. We also received, for the Chevy Chase Reservoir Project, Project of the Year by the American Public Works Association. So now we're going to take over Public Works. So we're very pleased about that. And finally, we received the Grid Week Award for Excellence in Deployment for our smart grid system. So even though it's been economically a difficult year, we've done fairly well. Our staff has worked hard, produced well, so very, very pleased with where we are on our strategic plan. And as I mentioned, we will do some corrections, some updates later this year. But that's a quick overview. But
yes, I have a couple questions. Going to workforce with the accidents, the safety indices that you were talking about improving. What are we currently doing to make that happen?
okay, we have a safety program. Of course, we review every accident. We have a safety incentive program to incent good safety habits. We have a safety coordinator in each one of our operating areas. We also have a centralized coordination. Ned Basson coordinates all of our safety from an administrative standpoint. And we're looking to see at this moment what we can do to increase further. The safety record we have, and I want to be clear with this, we've established that 2.0 is a fairly low goal. I mean, it's a good goal. And so I won't say it's a stretch goal, but it's one that we are striving to achieve. So the actual numbers that we have now are not exceedingly bad. In fact, they continue to decrease, which is very, very good. So our trend is good. We just haven't reached the 2.0.
Right, yeah, that's why we're in red. Yeah, I just want to stress the importance, of safety. I think we all know that here. It's important that every employee gets home safely. And so the next question I have is, let's say, under systems, launch profitable new business ventures. That's yellow, so we're ahead. Can you give me some examples?
We're not ahead. We're on track.
On track?
Yeah, on track
Okay.
for that. One example is our fiber system. As we enhance our fiber system, which we are doing with the smart grid system, it's allowed, first of all, additional Wi-Fi present within the city. We haven't done anything with that yet, but we have the ability to do so. The fiber system itself has additional capacity in it, and we're taking a look at how we might leverage that into additional revenue. We already make revenue on our fiber system. Not be aware of that. But as we solidify what we currently have, and we have a fairly substantial fiber system in place today, but that's being enhanced even more so. That is an area that has a lot of upside potential.
Okay, great, thanks.
I also ask regarding the profitable new business ventures. Do we own the poles, the electric poles and stuff, where we make money from telephone companies?
Yes.
Those type of ventures. Are we planning to expand them?
Well, our system is pretty much built out for the most part, so we're not looking to expand in terms of pole attachments. But we are looking to, as I said, the fiber piece on our poles is where we look to expand. Yeah.
So the fiber is actually on the pole, not on the ground?
In some cases it's in the ground, but it may.
I wanted to congratulate the utility and also yourself, Mr. Steiger, for being able to be in compliance with as many of these goals as you've listed, considering the fiscal stress that has occurred. I think you have only 17% of your goals are actually delayed. On your 2,500 acre-feet per year recycled water project, that is a capital project, of course. Your date given is December 2013. I assume that's a construction deadline that's been given.
That would be a construction deadline.
And how much delay does that based on, or do we know yet?
Well, we don't know for sure.
Okay.
But we expect that to be delayed. It could be delayed an additional 5 years, depending upon. The issue is the expenditure, because as you've noted, it's a fairly substantial expenditure. Our estimate right now is somewhere between $5 and $30 million. So the question becomes, and since it's a limited number of customers that participate in it, it's not all GWP customers, how do you pay for it and who pays for it? What point does it make sense to make that additional expenditure?
Right. Okay. So when we have our next quarterly update, you think you'll have a new construction proposed deadline? For
We will.
this? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then on your next one, the 2.5% PBC-like charge to fund water conservation, that's not a capital item.
Not at all.
Is that something that we might be able to catch up on?
Yeah, let me explain what that is. On the electric side, of course, we fund our conservation and efficiency programs and some of the renewable research and so on through a public benefits charge, which is added on to the electric bill. On the water side, we're not allowed to do that because of Prop 218. So we're limited in terms of how much we can actually do for our water customers, sent them additional conservation measures and efficiency. We believe the best way to do it is through a similar type of charge. What's being looked at currently, and we are supporting this at the state level, it's being looked at potentially to be implemented statewide, all water agencies, then make it, which would take it away from the restrictions of Prop 218. And so that's the issue as to how does it get implemented, who actually runs it, way. So it's going to take a while, but it is one of our goals, so we're pushing hard, and we're one of the supporters of it.
You think there's a possibility then that we'll catch up on this particular item? Okay. The 5.3, the rehabilitation of the 25 miles of pipeline, do we have a anticipated new project completion date for that?
We will. That's been pushed out
Okay.
about 3 years, though.
Okay, and then on 7.1, the job satisfaction of employees, is that something that, on this item that you mentioned related to pay, is that something that GWP management really has control over, or is it under?
It's a city issue.
Okay.
It's a city issue, but it's one that we have a responsibility to make sure the city understands all the various facets of it.
Yeah, and I realize it may be outside the purview of the commission, but I just wanted to state, I hope we can do whatever we can to get that resolved, because having a satisfied workforce is very important, and I think if you understand that, but it just ought to be said that we need to do whatever we can to try to address that issue. But thanks, that's all I have.
Well, since you mentioned that, I mean, just ironic that 7.1 and 7.3 is that we have unsatisfied employees, but we have a low vacancy rate.
True. And I don't want to overstate the unsatisfactory. Again, we strive for a very high level of satisfaction. So it's not that our workforce is unsatisfied, but they're not satisfied to the level that we are striving for. So, yeah, and that's a concern for us.
I wanted to go back to the 2.5% PBC-like charge, 1.3. How will that integrate into the rate redesign process, which is also meant to be a progressive rate system that would somehow reward conservation?
It probably won't, since it would be a statewide issue and most likely administered by a separate agency, and so it wouldn't directly impact how we design our rate. It may have some impact on how the rates are actually implemented, but not on the rate design.
Well, it was like the PVC for electric side, and for other utilities, it just has to, everyone pays into it.
Right.
We conserve and save that PVC-like charge. Is this 1.3 PVC-like charge legislative? Is that what you're talking about?
It's a regulatory issue, and we're looking at it currently. We're dealing with it through a couple of our associations. CMUA primarily is taking a look at it, but there are a number of different associations throughout the state that are looking at how this can be implemented before it actually goes to legislation, because it most likely will take a separate agency to do it. Maybe an existing agency, could be Department of Water Resources, or it could be an agency that hasn't been set up yet. For example, in New York State, New York State's electric EBC, so to speak, is a completely separate agency. It's called NYSERDA, and that agency in New York not only collects the money, but distributes the money, all the utilities. So what they're looking at here in California is something similar just for the water side.
So this will impact the investor-owned water utilities as well? So that
It could, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we have a estimated date for that
Not yet.
timeline?
Not
No?
yet. No, that's why when we redo the plan later this year, we'll have new dates.
Okay, thanks.
Jamian?
Just a quick comment. Thank you for the report, by the way. In the future, is there any way of, when we get these quality reports, to have like a column that says if a project is postponed or if we're ahead of schedule, how much are we ahead? Or a lot of the questions relate around that. You know, I think it'd be helpful to have a column.
We can take our best estimate of that.
I know it's hard to estimate.
Yeah, but
and then
we
be held to it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 3D, quarterly risk management update. Glenn Steiger.
I'd like to ask our Assistant General Manager of Power Supply, Steve Linz, to give this report.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, I'm Steve Linz, the Assistant General Manager of Supply for Glendale Water and Power. Good evening. Today I have a quick risk management update. I'm going to do that through two charts. The first one's a version of a chart that you saw last month. And this chart shows how we meet our system needs with our various resources. About 55% of our system needs are fixed. And if you look at this chart, you can see starting at the bottom, we've got nuclear first, then we've got coal, geothermal, landfill gas, our Magnolia base, wind, and hydro. That big block there, for the most part, is fixed and represents about 55% of our system needs. And the sole purpose of this chart is for you to see kind of how we fill that first 55%. So now we'll move to the second chart. Our entire hedging program hedges the remaining 45%. And the idea of the hedging program is to purchase and fix those prices to protect our ratepayers from, volatility or price swings. So you see on this chart 4 lines that start out horizontal and then start to taper off towards the end of the chart. These are our levels of hedging. And the red line at the bottom is labeled time-driven programmatic. It's a red line. It's got a red diamond on it. For a couple of months, it's flat and then tapers off. This is the absolute minimum of our unhedged needs that we want to have fixed in price. And then those levels increase depending on market. So we've got a certain programmatic buying program. We fix those prices. You can see, for example, January 11, the bottom of the chart, at that first line, about 35% is the minimum of our unhedged needs that we want to fix the price on. And as we approach the front month or the current month, we want to try to lock in more of those prices so that the prices are fixed to our customers. And the reason these lines taper off in the out months is that we want to leave those purchases open in the hopes that we have opportunities to buy system needs at lower costs. So there's one line on here. It's called the delta hedge percentage. It's a brown line with a diamond. Let me see what it looks like on the screen. It's the squiggly line, brown line with a diamond. You can see as of January 11th, we've got approximately 48% of our unhedged system fixed in price. And for, let me pick another point, March of 11, it's a little bit over 60% of our needs are hedged or fixed in price. And you can see that line kind of squiggles back and forth down that second line to December 12, where 0% of our unhedged needs are met. So this chart, the single chart, really is a representation of our risk management program and the percentage of our unhedged needs that are fixed. So at any point in time, you can look on this on that last line and see how much of our prices are fixed, in addition to the 55% of our system that's always fixed. And once again, as we approach the current month, we like to lock in more prices, and in the out months, we like to leave it open in hopes that we can take advantage of market swings and get lower prices for our ratepayers. So I think that's actually the end of my snapshot, and I know there's a lot on the second chart, but I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
I just want, thank you, Mr. Lins. One of the requests I recall making is just determining how effective our hedging methodology is doing. Isn't there a way we can do a back calculate? Because I think our hedging methodology and our vendor has been around for over a year now. Can we determine by backing into looking at the spot market that certain day to determine if this hedging methodology is making the utility money or not making money?
Well, we're actually right now evaluating vendors to help us come up with various metrics, trading metrics, to look at things like value at risk, to look at things related to how much price stability are we getting for how much premium on some of these hedges. We don't have that now. I think what I can say is that as Mr. Steiger mentioned, over the last year we have been keeping prices down, and as a result of that we've been able to take advantage of some low market prices and reduce the fuel adjustment charge and likewise reduce the rate. But we are still reviewing how much do we want to spend to reduce volatility, how much.
Well, that's exactly what I was getting at, is the certain options that we put in. If we determine that we're going to buy the fuel 6 months in advance for, let's say, $10 for natural gas, for MCF, and then we get 6 months later, it turns out to be $20. So it's great, you know, we made money. But if it turns out to be $5, that means we lost money. So how can we test that method and see if it actually made money or lost money?
We're reviewing that now. I mean, mathematically, they say the best thing to do is to have no hedging at all, because you have zero cost. As long as your ratepayers can withstand any price swing and they don't mind the price going up and down, you don't spend any money. And you don't have the problem that you're mentioning, which is if you buy high and it goes lower, well, you could have bought it lower, or if you buy low and it goes higher, you could have bought it, you know.
Yeah, that's what we just want to determine if we actually, or the methodology we're using is effective. So if we know that we keep losing money, if we keep buying at a certain point, thinking that the fuel price is going to keep going up, but it turns out to be going down, then maybe we have to relook at doing something different with our methodology.
Yeah, our overall philosophy now is one of insurance. We're really trying to protect against big blowouts. But at the same time, we are looking at metrics to try to figure out how to optimize that balance so that we're not spending too much to keep the volatility low.
What about comparing it to other utilities as well, to their hedging mechanisms?
That's actually part of the proposed metrics that our vendors are looking at, is to look at sister utilities and find out what they're doing with their hedging programs as well.
Okay, so we'll have that in the future presentation on some.
Yes.
When would that be? When would we have some kind of idea of a comparison with other utilities or the other methods that you mentioned in which we're measuring the value of the program?
We're talking to consultants now. I mean, my best guess would be 3 to 6 months before we get through that process, develop the metrics, and have a chance to compare our performance to the metrics they develop as well as to peers around us.
Okay. Do we have any insight into customers' tolerance for volatility? You mentioned that if we had no hedging, that actually might be cheaper in the long run. And so, you know, that kind of opens up the question whether we might be better off not having any hedging at all. I mean, of course, there's an issue about, customer tolerance for volatility. Do we have any insight into that?
Not specific insight. I know that we, like I said, 55% of our load is fixed to begin with. So you've only got the 45% left. We've hedged for many years, and I know that through the crisis, prices swung quite a bit, and we kept prices steady. So I don't think our ratepayers have actually been subjected yet to much volatility. And I know that we haven't done anything from a metrics perspective to measure what their tolerance is for that.
Would you consider that worth looking into as a way of guiding the program?
Let me address that. Every utility hedges, every single one.
Yeah.
It is accepted practice, and you don't have to hedge, it's true. However, if you go back 2 years ago when we were paying $12 for natural gas, we're paying less than $4 today. Those spikes occur very quickly. So if you don't hedge, what happens is the bills next month will go up by 50%. And that's where we know that customers don't have tolerance, nor should they, for that kind of thing. So our hedging program gives it stability. That's what it's meant to be. The odds, generally, if you go for long-term hedging, if you take a look at hedging over, say, 5 years, it's about break even. Okay, it's not meant to save lots of money, but it's also not meant to allow you to hit these spikes too. So there's a good reason for it. If we didn't hedge, we'd be one of the very few utilities in the country not hedging. I think rather than to look at not hedging, the best thing is to do is how do you refine what we're already doing.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to imply we shouldn't be hedging. It's just that your question or your talk kind of opened up this question about what's the appropriate hedging mechanism in terms of what minimizes adverse impact on customers, which kind of implies some kind of understanding of customer psychology. And I don't know if we have done that, so that's why I wanted to ask.
No, we haven't. It's a good point. And as I said, we are trying to come up with some metrics to help us understand better what are we getting for the premium we're paying. Exactly how much price stability are we getting for that premium, and how do we optimize that?
Can you characterize the amount of volatility that has been reduced? Presumably this falls within some kind of bell curve or something, and there's a standard deviation associated with not hedging, and with hedging you have a lower standard deviation or something like that. I don't know.
I can, but I didn't come prepared with that.
Oh, okay.
Today.
All right, but that's something that you could measure.
I can show you on a chart kind of the bandwidth that we're in terms of our hedging program.
Maybe when in a comparison with other utilities, that might be useful. Thanks, that's all I have.
Is that, Mr. Lin, correlate to the value at risk that you're talking about, that you're going to bring that back, and some of the standard deviation is based on the vol and how much we're going to be at risk for?
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to cite an example for Commissioner Miller's question about customer thresholds on acceptance. And this isn't, I don't have specific data points for you, but I can say that, for example, on small business customers, Edison went to seasonal rates, which meant on kind of low peak season, they were saving tremendously, but then there was a 70% swing on the other end of the equation. I will say that customers usually just remember the swing high side of the equation and don't remember that they saved, in the off months as just a one data point. So I think the volatility issue is a serious issue just from a customer budgeting perspective. If you can't predict, whether your bills go up or down 50 to 70% in any given month, that can cause a lot of difficulty for a lot of customers. So either the customers are going to have to hedge, or we're going to have to hedge for them. So I would suggest that we need to look at the hedging. But I do take President Yao's point seriously in that I do think that we need to also demonstrate the value of the hedging program in some more simplified terms by looking at past track record of just like some past historical data to say, okay, we hedged over the last year, what did we get for it?
Sure.
Even if that result is, well, what you got is, we didn't really save anything, but What we did save is the customer having to worry about whether their bills are going to be swinging drastically. That has some value to be presented to the customer.
I agree, and as you mentioned, it's actually a budgeting issue for us as well, because the fuel adjustment charge, at least under the code as it's structured now, we're only allowed to change every 6 months, so we need to keep it within a certain range, because we don't want to get extremely undercollected or extremely overcollected
Yeah, how much
on
cash flow are you going to put
Right.
aside to be able
Exactly.
to... You're going to be hedging in a different way, which means from a cash flow perspective, you're going to have to...
Exactly. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item 3E, Smart Grid Update, Craig Keenan.
Mr. President, Commissioners, Craig Keenan, Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator. Last month, you had asked for some specific questions about the program, and that's what I'm here to address today. Go to the next slide. First one was the customer notification process. Now, in addition to our general outreach through press releases, advertisements, community meetings and things like that, we do send out a letter to customers a month to 6 weeks in advance of when they're going to get the smart meter. In that letter, it does tell them that they will be getting their electric or water meter in the next few weeks. It says who's going to do the installation. It tells them when the meter will be installed, generally Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. And it does state, among other things, if you have medical equipment, there's a phone number to call for an appointment. And it also says that you have the option to schedule an appointment. Now, I don't know if you received in your packet copies of the materials. I have extras here if you want. Yes. As a matter of statistics, we've sent out about 9,100 letters so far, and that's generated about 128 calls to the call center, the UPA call center. In terms of customers, we have not had any customers review or refuse the installation so far. In terms of complaints, we've had a total of 9. And most of them were, my water's not on. One person had scheduled an appointment for whatever reason that meter got changed out outside of that time frame. So, but out of 5,800 meters so far, we had 9 complaints. So that's not a very big number. We also offer our customers other languages. We've had 2 requests for Armenian materials and 1 for Korean. In addition, well, you're going a little faster. What's still on the initial? Okay. There's a second customer notification. 2 weeks prior to getting their meters, we'll send out the postcard you have there. It'll remind them that we're going to be installing the meter. It reminds them about medical equipment. And it does remind them again that they have the option to schedule an appointment. And it also says who the installer is going to be in the time of day that meters will be installed. And then the third notification is basically an installer will come to the customer home, they'll knock on the door. If they get an answer, they'll tell them why they're there. If not, they'll go ahead and replace the meter and then put the post or the door hanger on there. One is for electric, one is for water. And it does leave the phone number again. It leaves some general instructions, like you might have to reset your clocks, or if your water meter's been changed, you should run it for a minute to get the air out of the lines. Or if they couldn't change the meter, it'll say that. And then again, the toll-free number is there. You also asked about critical care customers. We do maintain a list of what we call our lifeline customers. It's customers who have medical equipment in their homes that are for lifeline purposes, that they can't be without that equipment for a certain length of time without being life-threatening. So we maintain that list. Those customers all get an appointment for installation, and the customers also have the option to call us to set that up themselves. It is part of our FAQs. We have a special item in there that says call for an appointment. So we treat this very, this is a very important thing. We're very sensitive to this. So It's in all our materials, and we really make an effort to meet those needs. Another question you had was on accurate meter measurement. We do take photos of all the old meters. You're doing this for me now, aren't you? I'm not good at that. We do take photos of our old electric meters and our electric and water meters, and we take a photo of the new meter and we put it in our database, so we have that record of customer calls. 100% of the electric and water meters are tested at the factory. We randomly test 1% here in-house, and 5% of each installation work is audited by UPA. I believe water does some of their own auditing of the installations as well. In terms of billing questions, we've been around a while. We've been getting billing questions for at least 100 years now. We don't expect that process to change when we change into the smart meters. Basically, a customer can contact GWP customer service by phone, letter, email, or in person. The customer service rep that's assigned that or receives the phone call will attempt to resolve that issue right then with the customer. If they can't, they will take what information they need and then investigate it and get back to the customer. That could be checking out the photo database. There are times customers have had questions about billing questions as far as usage or then we've actually we have an auditing firm that does our electric and water audits. We've at times sent them out to look at their house to make sure that there's no outside reason that it could be other than the meter. And if the customer service utility rep is not able to resolve it, there is an escalation process. It goes to the senior, it goes to the customer service administrator, the general manager, and I believe all the way can come to you. But we'll verify that with Tammy. So we really take these concerns seriously, and we make every effort to resolve the issue. As far as historical data, that was another question you had. We will be able to have access to the old data for the homeowner or the apartment dweller. Now, in the past, it's every 2 months. So, when you get your new meter, you'll have access to daily, hourly reads. So there'll be a little bit of an integration issue there, but we do have the historical data. Your bill won't change. You'll get the same stuff on your bill as always, and historical usage will be there. It's just when we go to the new websites where you can go in and see hourly data or weekly data, there will be some holes in there until it starts filling in. What did we mean by enhanced customer service? Basically, the customer service utility reps will have access to up-to-date usage information that they don't have right now. Right now, when a customer calls, they have 2-month readings every 2 months to answer customer questions. They can't go into the system to see that the power's on right now. They can't do on-demand reads. They'll be able to do all those things with the new system. We'll have better outage management. I know Henry Abari was up talking about outages. We'll know right away when there's an outage out there. We won't have to wait for the customer to call us. And as the smart grid, more computer systems are put in and outage management system, things like that, we'll be able to offer more and more services. Improve ways to detect and prevent theft of power. These meters will, if somebody bumps into the meter, it sends an alarm. If somebody tries to take it out of its socket, it sends an alarm. So there's 3 or 4 different ways that the meter can tell us somebody's trying to steal power, and we'll know that right away. And preventing theft of power saves money for all of us, so that's a big issue for us. Customers will have access to more detailed billing information via the web and eventually through in-home displays and a multitude of other technologies that are going to be offered once the smart grid is in place. So those are the kinds of things we meant by enhanced customer service. In terms of the smart grid update, as you know, we started to go to full-scale production about the first week of December. As of the 29th, we've installed 4,600 electric meters and close to 1,300 water meters. That includes the ones we installed during the proof of concept. Our planned installations for January are 8,750 electric meters and about 3,200 water meters. The rains do slow us down, particularly the water meters usually outside. The installers will try and concentrate on apartment buildings when we can, where they can go in a basement or something like that and change out meters. But we've still made good progress even though we have had the rains. In terms of the budget, our expenditures through the end of November are just over $21 million. The original plan was closer to $28 million. We are getting back on track here now that we've gone to full production and things are moving ahead. As that bottom line gets closer to the top one, we'll show we're more on schedule. As far as the DOE grant, we received close to $7.5 million so far, and we expect another $2.7 million in the next few weeks as we catch up on our back billing. For water, expenditures are just over $8 million, and again, we expect that as now that we're in full production, we'll catch back up. That's the presentation this month. Happy to entertain questions and take suggestions on what you want to hear about next month.
I just have a few. Thank you, Mr. Keenan. That's a very good update. The other one I have was on slide 13, where it mentions that customer historical usage data, that they'll be able to get hourly, weekly, and monthly data through O-Power web portal. But it seems like that's not through GWP website.
That O-Power is, we contract with O-Power through SCAPA to provide right now our home energy reports, and we recently expanded that contract to offer web portal services to all our customers. So as they get the smart meter installed, that data will go to O-Power and go into their website. So shortly after you get your smart meter, you can go to a website and start looking at your data.
So then right now they have access to the GWP website to pay bills and stuff.
Yes, there is the e-care system.
But they won't be able to go through GWP's website to look at the usage, or can they?
This is a second option. You'll still be able to go to the e-care website and look at usage data there.
Okay, so customers have two options then?
Yes.
So an option with GWP website and the O-Power.
Yes.
Which one are you promoting?
Well, the O-Power one gives you a bit more information because it allows you to compare to like households, your average neighbor. So it gives you a comparison. If you look at just your own usage and it's not in any context, you have no idea if you're really using more power than the average or less, or how well you're doing in saving. And the O-Power website gives you that information.
So it seems like there's more features in the O-Power website if they're looking at more details or comparisons rather than going through the GWP.
Yes, but we do want to give people options. Some customers are used to going to e-care, and they like what's there, so we'll continue to offer that.
Commissioner
I
Mead?
wanted to pick up on the where President Yao left off on the O-Power. When you say comparisons, is it providing comparative data within their own neighborhood, or is it more general?
O-Power uses several different databases to come up with a like household of size and yard and building size and age of house, and then they will develop an average based on that, looking at 100 like households within a mile or so of where you live. So it's not your actual neighbor. It's just an average sort of. Because there is that. Some customers get our O-Power reports and they think they're being compared to their next door neighbor, and they're not. And when we do talk to them, we explain that to them.
That's why I wanted to clarify that, because there are sometimes privacy concerns on.
Right.
So-
Yes, and the only one that has access to this is that customer. No one else can go in and look at your information, so.
The other question I had to do with critical care. You mentioned that you've got a list of customers who are on critical care. How is that list built? Is that through self-reporting, where a customer calls in and puts themselves on the list? Or
It can be through that. We also have our Guardian program, which provides a discount to customers who have medical equipment. That isn't necessarily lifeline type medical equipment. It could be, I don't know the names of the things, but some of them aren't life-threatening if you don't have them. But we do offer still a discount for that. And so in part of that process, when they apply for that discount, we will check with the doctor to make sure that it's a lifeline or not. And from that, we will update our list. But we do maintain a list. People can call and tell us, yes, I have this equipment, I would like to be on the list, and we will put them on there.
I guess where I'm going with that is that there is the possibility that there are people who do have that sort of equipment but are not on your lists. So
yes, there is that possibility.
They should be encouraged. I guess they're encouraged to call.
Yes.
The 800 number or your customer service line to notify you that they do, in fact, have that sort of equipment.
Well, in these materials, it's the UPA line, but we would encourage them to call the 818-548-3300 number if they do have
Any sort of medical device.
Yes.
And if you could clarify, I know it was in your report, but you didn't touch upon it in your presentation, which is about how long will the outage be when you're replacing either the electric meter or the water meter?
The electric meter should be within minutes. It's just pull it out and put it in. The water meter, I believe, is like 15 minutes, if everything goes right.
And so if someone is running a server or computer equipment at home, they need to be aware that their power is going to go out.
Yes, I would say if you work at home and you have critical things call and make the appointment. The UPA will knock on the door, and hopefully, you'll hear it. But if you do have special need like that, I would urge you to call.
And there are several notifications even before the knock on the door. My final question had to do with, actually, you said it occurs to me that people might not be aware of this. But so, for example, in an apartment building where it might be in a basement, or even in a home where the wireless signals in the area are not good, since these meters do use wireless communication technology, I assume that the installer will make sure that the meter is fully functioning and communicating before taking off from the premises.
Yeah, they will make sure that the meter is operating. As far as is the information getting back to us at GWP, we monitor that every day. We have an AMI operations team, and they know what meters have been put in. They know which ones should be sending information back. And they'll watch these reports that will tell them, well, it's been 1 day since this meter reported, or 2 days, or 3 days. When it gets to a certain point in a meter that should be reporting hasn't, then we'll go out and check it. But that's how we...
And what do you do in the cases of apartment buildings where the meters are, let's say, in a basement where there is no wireless signal?
I would have to ask my project manager to answer that question, but you can have repeaters or other things that you could do. But Terry, if you want to...
President Commission, Terry McDonald, project manager. The good news is we've installed a lot of them in basements, in apartment buildings already. They're all communicating beautifully. So we haven't encountered that problem. We do have a supply of repeaters in stock right now that we can use for the purpose of extending the range if in fact that becomes a problem. But we've had remarkable success with these meters working just fine in areas that, frankly, we thought would be difficult. We've had water meters communicating with us from inside fairly deep enclosures with steel lids on them, and they've been communicating perfectly. So far, with the over 5,000 that we've installed, we've had a tremendous track record, but we are prepared to mitigate any problems that we encounter.
Thank you.
I just have some follow-up questions to my other questions. Was the on slide 18, you mentioned some planned installation for January.
Mm-hmm.
How are you planning the rollout? Are you going by geographic area, the north and south, and east or west?
We're planning as the routes become available, and it so happens that, the way I understand it, the routes become available almost like in a circular pattern around the city. So we don't want to be in a situation where meter readers that we have don't have work for weeks at a time. So as a route becomes available, we issue that route to UPA, we send out the letters, and we just maintain that normal pattern.
I was curious if you can maybe have on the GWP website on some of the planned geographic installations so people can anticipate. I mean, even though they're getting these notifications, but if they can see visually where the next installation is going to be, is it 3 months from now or 6 months from now, then they can maybe gear up for that. If they have
We can look into that. There are some other issues we could discuss outside of the meeting, though, by putting that information on the website.
That would be great. Well, the other question that relates to meter installation is the opt-out, because I was reading Ms. Haddad's legislative action items for this year, and there's a bill that would give the customer the option to opt out from having a smart meter installed in their premises. So if that were to pass or signed by the governor, how does that impact this project? If the customer has the option to not have a smart meter installed, they can say no to it. What happens to GWP? Does that screw up the data or the meter collection? Or?
It can. It would mean, it depends on how many people opt out, but we would have to go to manual reads on those, as we do now, which from a billing standpoint is not a problem. From a smart grid operational standpoint, it becomes a little bit problematic in that the system ultimately depends on all the data integrating together. So it would put some holes.
So I guess it's needless to say that we're going to oppose that bill.
Yes, we are.
That's all I have. Thank you for the update again, Mr. Keith.
Just one question. On your customer notification, did you indicate how long the meter replacement would last? I didn't see that listed, and Commissioner Jimmy had asked about that.
Well, I'd have to go through these
I think it
materials.
says 30 minutes. That's somewhere.
Yeah, I would think it does, but I'd have to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, installation usually will be completed within 30 minutes. It's on the...
Is your 800 contact for the medical equipment or for critical care customers, is there a 24/7 number they can use?
Gary?
Yeah, okay. Okay, all right. And has there been any challenge with submetering with the project at this point? Or do we have submeters
No.
Okay.
Totalizers, but not...
Okay, all right. Thanks, that's all I had. Thanks.
Questions or comments? No? Next item, please, George.
Oh, is there something you would like specifically for next month, or...
Gantt charts.
Gantt charts. I'll work on that.
No, this is a great presentation, a great update. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Informative.
We're going to 3F, social media. Ask George Abagazians from our administrative staff to give an update and a presentation on the potential of utilizing Facebook.
Good evening, President Yao, members of the Commission. My name is George Agabigians, Office Services Specialist for Glendale Water and Power. Today I'm here to give you a brief presentation regarding social media, specifically Facebook, and its use by city governments. A brief background about Facebook. It was established in 2004 as a social networking service capable of one-way or two-way real-time communication. Currently it has over 500 million active users. Active users are defined as users who sign on to their profiles at least once a month. 55,600 of them are registered in Glendale, California. Now keep in mind that not every single resident that lives in Glendale registers in Glendale. Sometimes they register under Los Angeles, which is a more generic, larger location. So the numbers there, the 55,600 is easily an understatement. This chart shows how rapidly Facebook grew since its birth in 2004. In 2004, there were 1 million active users. In 2007, there were 50 million. In 2008, 100 million. By 2010, Facebook has over 550 million active users. A comparison to our sister cities, there are 81,000 users registered in Burbank, California, 54,000 in Pasadena, 106,000 in Anaheim, and 3 million in Los Angeles. Now, those numbers would indicate that 3 out of 4 people who reside in Los Angeles have a Facebook account. Those numbers also include those who are living in Glendale, though have registered in the Los Angeles network. So 1 out of every 4 Glendale residents has a Facebook profile. The concept of government on Facebook is not a new one. It's a trend that I think we must follow. Our sister cities are doing so as well. There's this page specifically designed to help government agencies best utilize Facebook, especially those who are new. Some of the notable, here's a short list of government agencies which utilize Facebook. The following slide contains a larger list of organizations. Some of the notable ones would include the Federal Trade Commission, the U.S. Department of Energy, City of Boston, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and so forth. This is just a long list. It's available online on the GWP Commission website. The following slide is Burbank Water and Power, which is one step ahead of us right now, but not by much. They have included their information, such as their location, their phone number, their website, and as it states right there, they've just joined the Facebook network. Following slide is Pasadena Water and Power. It's a little bit more information listed there. Not as much as I'd like the Glendale Water and Power to list, but they do have information such as water conservation tips, how to understand your water bill, and so forth, pictures, links, information that would help the customer understand their bill and identify with their utility a bit more. The following 2 slides are perfect examples of one-way real-time communication. In this case, LADWP has posted their information, a bit about its history, and that's pretty much it. There's no way the Facebook user can contact or communicate with LADWP. As you can see, there's no area that you can comment on the wall or send a message. I have a solution to that. I'll show you in the following slides. The Metropolitan Water District has also joined Facebook. They've simply listed their location on a map, their phone number, and their address. Not much more than that in this case. The Los Angeles City Council has also recently joined Facebook. As you can see from the script on the left that they're working on it, it's under construction. They're starting to follow the trend as well. The following slides are some examples from from an actual page that has been provided insights. Facebook provides daily, weekly, monthly, yearly insights as to how many users visit your profile, or your fan page in this case. When a Facebook user likes your page, there's a like button that they click and they become fans. And Facebook provides us free of charge insights regarding how many people have visited this month, this week, today, how many people have unliked your page, how many people have liked your page. It's a free service that they provide, and I recommend that we take advantage of it. The following slide is a more detailed insight involving demographics, age, gender, countries, languages that are translated into. Facebook translates into over 70 languages, so we're really opening up our audience to a much, much larger. Yes, we're definitely opening our doors a bit more. The following slide is, since this particular page's birth in April 2010, it shows a total number of likes including the top countries, the top cities, top languages, and the age range. As we can see, from April to December, we can tell that the majority of the profile users, Facebook users who visited this website are female, age 25 to 34. So this kind of gives us more of an understanding. This could give us an understanding of who visits our page, who's interested, who's looking for more information, and so forth. The average user has 130 friends on Facebook. Some have thousands, some have tens. When a user likes a page, they become a fan. Any updates that we give on the Commission's behalf are distributed in a bulletin board on the Facebook user's profile. So that one update that we post goes to 130 friends of each fan. Now, a little bit about the benefits. I propose that the GWP Commission provide a one-way real-time communication to avoid unfiltered public commenting on. There will be no wall. The wall will be our own GWP's informational messages that we relay to them. If we launch the Facebook website, we will automatically appear on top of Google searches and most search engines. Because of the high traffic of Facebook, it has priority in search engines. If we type City of Glendale Water and Power right now, the Twitter account will not come up. The Facebook account will. We're also allowing those who are unable to physically attend the meetings to keep up with what's going on. Those who are disabled, those who have language barriers. Facebook provides translations. Facebook provides links and videos. The same information we have on our Glendale Water and Power website can be relayed through Facebook. And we can also advertise our PBC care programs, our rebates. I suggest that we list some family-friendly phone numbers, including tree trimming services, non-emergency police lines, bulky item pickup to make Glendale a greener place. We can also, through Facebook, proactively find existing audiences for informational purposes, such as water rate increases or decreases, or any such information that involves GWP. We obviously are proving that we go above and beyond the Brown Act requirements. We don't just post an agenda on the bulletin board. We provide a Facebook page where people can utilize all the links and videos and seminars that we provide. And as smart grid takes over the utility, we're changing direction from the traditional way. As Commissioner Armenian requested and suggested, that we show a step-by-step process on what's going to happen. There are applications on Facebook that we can make to show exactly what will happen when the GWP employee comes to install the smart meter. We can, as I will show on the next slide, I have a test page that I have not launched yet. I have created a GWP Commission page which is not launched yet, but I will display how we can give useful information to our customers. We will allow all members, fans, Facebook users to express their concerns, not through the Facebook website, but there will be email addresses provided, such as yours and myself and mine as the Secretary of the Commission. As far as staff resources, this really only requires one person to monitor and post these updates and links and videos. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to research and about 5 to 10 minutes to post in the appropriate location. So we're talking about 30 minutes of staff resources used per day. If we were to do this on a daily basis, we could do it on a bi-weekly, monthly, or yearly basis. Status updates. Facebook allows you to post an unlimited amount of pictures, videos. Videos, there's a small limit, but basically for status updates, Twitter only allows 140 characters. Therefore, sometimes we have to abbreviate our message. And in this case, Facebook allows 420 characters per status update, and those are unlimited as well, the number of updates. I'd like to show you how it works. This website right here is not published yet, though if I could direct your attention to the screen, this is what I propose the GWP test page would look like. For example, our fuel adjustment charge has just decreased. We laid that information on the website. How to save money on your energy bill, how to little bit of information about smart meters. We also create events on Facebook in which fans are automatically notified. For example, on Monday, February 7th, 2011, at 4 p.m., we have a regularly scheduled commission meeting. I recommend that anyone who is interested and would like to hear more about the utility to join. Here's today's event, council chambers, the regularly scheduled commission meeting. Also tips about how to, about using LED lights, how you could save electricity, avoid overload circuits, and so forth. I've posted some videos and links, which I can show you now, though I'll try to be brief. Videos about smart meters, full deployment, our awards, a bit of information about us, our mission, our description, and of course, our commissioners and their contact information will be here, the same as the website. So this Facebook page definitely gives the public a little more access to the commission, which is something we're definitely looking for. Definitely looking for. Oh, back to the presentation. I asked the public to reach out to us with questions and concerns. Identify with your utility by joining the commission meetings and participate in opening seminars. Join us every Monday, the first Monday of every month at 4 p.m. here in the council chambers. We are here, we want to hear, and President Yao, members of the commission, I recommend that we make Glendale a greener place, one Facebook fan at a time. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Well, the first question is it the GDP Commission site or just the GWP website?
This would, for right now, I'm presenting a GWP Commission site, though this could evolve into a city website based on Mr. site.
How come we don't have a GDP Facebook site and just...
This is our first foray, so to speak, into Facebook, and we felt it was appropriate to have the commission buy into it, and the commission be the first participant in Facebook before it goes full production into GWP. But we would ultimately recommend that it be a complete GWP.
Does the city have a Facebook site? I know that some city, even corporations, are weary of having going too deep into social media, and so what is the concern of why the city of Glendale hasn't?
I believe that the issue that most cities face are privacy issues, basically unfiltered commenting on public forums. What I have researched and what my research indicates that is preventable. We can prevent public commenting on the wall. They can send us as many emails as they wish through our city emails. Though on the public forum online, Facebook has the ability to prevent that. And actually, Facebook is very aggressive in their security. Up here. Facebook works with online safety experts around the world and has established this global safety advisory board that it consults with on safety issues. And there could be more information found on this online. Facebook is very diligent with trying to filter these kind of unwanted comments. And we could completely disable messaging on our public wall.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm very supportive of this venture because I'm really into social media as well. And I know that my wife has like a few accounts herself, so you're double counting all these vendor users. You might be double counting or triple counting her. So, just I think it's a good idea. I think we should go for it and just test it out and see what kind of feedback. Because I'm really open to having people know what's going on in this city as well as particularly this commission. And if they can participate more, that's all the better for open.
Absolutely, and other cities do have Facebook, not profiles, but pages. A profile would be an individual person. Or first name, last name. A page, in our case, would be an organization. And the city of Boston, city of Burbank, they do have Facebook pages. Though I really think I think that creating a Facebook for the commission would be a great idea to start because given the insights in a week or two or a month even, we can tell how much traffic is going through and how effective it would be to expand it to the entire city as opposed to just the commission.
The only thing is that we won't get the unfiltered stuff that people actually want to talk about. They have to email us. They can't just
go to
show
their
it.
own page.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about that.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, first of all, I wanted to commend you for the initiative. I think it's very timely, and I know it's a little bit difficult to figure out from a policy perspective sometimes on these things, but I commend you for taking the initiative. But the question I had is, you showed the various cities and what they've done. Have we done anything to benchmark or perhaps talk to them in terms of best practices or any key learnings as they've done it, so that we have the benefit of that experience before we dive in?
I have not communicated with them regarding their feedback. What I have observed, though, is that they have, at one point, they have stopped posting and they have not deleted their account. So what I'm assuming is that they have either limited resources or they just didn't advertise well enough, or those are just assumptions. But from what I see is that they do have the Facebook pages, and at one point they've stopped posting. Whether that's for they've been told to or not, I can't answer that. But
My
I
recommendation would be then let's communicate and see what sort of best practices or key learnings or reasons why they're not posting. I think all that would be very beneficial to guide our work. And then the second question I had, which is probably for you, Mr. Steiger, is from a resourcing perspective, this obviously requires some resourcing to do it right. You don't want to start and then not have the resources and have it go stale. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've looked at that already. This would be a joint venture between our administrative staff, George, and our public benefits staff. Public benefits staff now does most of our, if not all of our, public outreach. But what we've done, expanded the resource by bringing it into the administrative area. So, yeah, we've looked at that. And as George said, at the moment, we're looking at a very limited amount.
Thank you.
And at the least, it could just be posting the agendas and the forecasts. So, I mean, that's just like the Metropolitan Water District had their location on a map. We can do the same things we do on the city website. Just post the agendas, the forecast, the minutes, at the least.
Yeah, in doing your research, also find out if the various different city departments are posting. For example, if it's Burbank Water and Power, is it Burbank Water and Power or is it the commission? My question is, a lot of the information that was posted is really about GWP versus the commission. I mean, yes, the commission is a part of it, but what would be I guess I'm trying to understand why would launching it as a commission-based launch versus the whole GWP launch.
I believe that the other commissions that exist in the city, they can launch their own pages as well, as so can the entire city as a whole. I believe that launching the commission website would just give us a little bit more, would give us some insights about how much traffic we're going to have. Is it worth it? Is it worth investing the time into it? I do believe that we should have a Glendale Water and Power Facebook, though I think we should also have a separate commission Facebook so that we can address certain issues that aren't necessarily appropriate to address to the entire organization as a whole.
I'm just not seeing that.
Well, it's good to have a popularity contest to see if the commission website gets more hits.
No, I guess.
Well, we know how that's going to land.
I'm not seeing it because I guess the commission page could be a part of the whole GWP page, and it could refer to the link. It could refer to the GWP website, overall. Versus, you don't want to be too redundant. You want to have enough information out there for the public, but at the same time, I just social media can sometimes get out of hand, and what information you put out there as far as you just want to be wary of that. But my recommendation would be, or at least first do the research and then consider everything that you posted over there was, minus the commissioner's bios, was and the picture was really a GWP issue versus the commission, because everything, was about the whole organization. So that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you. I agree.
I just want to say I'm supportive of your effort to develop the page.
We could ultimately link the Facebook account to the Twitter account once it's an entire GWP.
It will.
I would also like to commend you for your effort, and it's a great idea. No, but I do see, duplicating effort, because you do maintain a web page, And if our Facebook is going to be one-way communication, essentially it's the same thing. I mean, yes, we update faster, right? And the hope is to include issues and communication faster.
If you're referring to the city website that we update, that's also one-way communication. There's no
Right.
messaging on that
Exactly.
particular website
Right.
as well.
Oh, and
this
the
would be
GWP one as well.
Yeah, the GWP website, that would be a prime example of a one-way communication. It would
Right.
not be two-way because they would not be able to.
That's right. And that's what we're talking about right now. The commission Facebook page would be one way. While it's a great idea and all, now I do see a lot of duplicating effort, seems like. I mean, explain to me how that's not.
Can I comment?
Well, because this way we're opening the information up to a lot more doors. On the search engine, we would, especially having a Facebook account, Glendale Water and Power would pop up immediately before Twitter, before even maybe the city website. We're not. I couldn't tell you right now because the website is not launched yet. Though, personally, from the administrative point of view, I don't update the website. All I do is I send the information to our IS department, which updates the city website. In this case, PBC and the administrative staff would be coordinating to upload agendas and forecasts. So this wouldn't overload one person or one department. This would be a separate.
And if I could add, this kind of goes back to the principle that I brought up of us going to where the people are versus us having the people come to where we want them to come. And I think there's a lot of people on Facebook, number one. Number two, even when in its one-way configuration, when you sign on to say you like it, you start to get feeds. So as things are posted, you're notified of that posting. And so that starts to create linkages between networks of people who are following your work versus hoping that they come to a website when they need something. So there is some duplication, granted, but I also think there's some powerful tools there in terms of social networking that allows us to get more to where the people are that are interested in these topics.
It's more push marketing, and also you're opening up to a very different age group. That's part of the reason, so, I mean, take a look at the average user of Facebook. It's much younger than the average user who's going to be on GLP's website.
And the minimum age to have a Facebook profile is 13 years old, so we're not. So yeah, we're looking anywhere from 13 up, and I would recommend that even those who are 13 to 17 to look into it. I mean, this is our future, this is our utility, and hopefully they can identify with it a bit more than right now.
I definitely support it, and I think there's a lot of good that can be done with it, planned properly and deployed properly.
So it sounds like there's some consensus on continue with publishing the Facebook site, and in the meantime, you can look at what best practices that you can follow, and then just go ahead and pursue with that. I think nothing's holding you up, George. Continue up.
Yeah, and make sure
Good
we
job.
have the proper resource allocation and we stay with it. And
Yes.
just as Commissioner Armenian said, not to make it stale or we quit like after a month or two or something.
Absolutely.
We'll assure that.
Okay.
Yes.
So just let us know when you launch it, and we'll invite other people to sign up.
Sign on. We'll put the thumbs up on it.
Great, thank you. Anything else? If not, the next item, please.
Item number 4, oral communications.
I don't have any cards here with me, so oral communication closed. Next item, please.
Item 5, old business.
Any old business? Oh, I guess the other one is the election for new officers of this commission. Christine?
That item will be placed on the agenda for the next commission meeting. We need to elect a new president, a new secretary, and so we will just follow the same procedure as we did last year at this time. It would be nominations followed by election in the form of a motion.
Next month's agenda. The old business? Next item, please.
Item number 6, new business.
Business?
Yes, I understand that there was a safe yield study that was going to be conducted for the San Fernando and Verdugo groundwater basins, and that it was decided not to conduct that. And I thought it would be worthwhile hearing why that's the case. The safe yield study, just to clarify for the audience, determines what the long-term replenishment rate for the groundwater basins is. And, of course, you want to make sure your long-term demand is less than or equal to that amount. Otherwise, you'll be depleting the groundwater basin. So it's an important environmental issue. So I don't know if other commissioners are interested. We can talk a little bit more about it if you want to know more about it. Or the reason I bring it up is I think I need a second supporter to agendize it.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We'll agendize that.
Okay, thank you.
Business?
One thing to say, I just wanted to, it's not necessarily new business, but I wanted to thank the GWP management for the tour of the Glorieta substation that I and Commissioner Jemian took, I think it was last month. It was a very impressive work being done there, and I hope we can, at a future moment when it comes to its conclusion, do a total review of that project, because I really think it's worth highlighting.
Thank you. We expect to have that project completed and energized by May, June at the latest of this year. Thank you. We will do that.
I actually want to thank Mr. Steiger and staff. Ned Basson gave me a tour of the Grayson power plant. Tour was 2.5 hours. It was great. They answered every single one of my questions. It was very impressive and very informative. Thank you.
I think you wore him out because he's left. You're certainly welcome.
Any other ones? Wait, that's closed. Next one, please.
Item number 7, agenda forecast.
Mr. Miller?
Oh, just to note, the election would be on the meeting on February 7th then. And then we need something for the succession planning topic, just to remind you that needs to be put on. Should we have something on the water transfer that's going to be held by council in February, or do you think that's needed?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Howard said that it won't be until second week of February when he'll notify City Council.
Okay, what I mean is maybe in March.
Maybe in March, yeah, maybe in March.
Yeah, just to discuss it a little bit.
Items?
On the last quarter of the year, is there a strategic plan quarterly scoreboard update scheduled? That ought to be looked up.
But, I think one of the commissioners requested Mr. Lin to come back and go over the historical performance
Of the hedging
of the
methodology?
hedging. Yeah. Was that
I have
determined?
written down the metrics that
The
he's
metrics.
going to provide further information regarding the metrics when it's available, but I thought it was in the 6 months.
Maybe it's a good idea just to put down a placeholder, maybe 8 months from now or 7 months from now, just to make that a target date to have the information available. And then if it doesn't work out, you can always postpone it by a month or however much you need.
For the July or August.
So let's do June before the summer peak to determine, maybe factor that in, how we're going to prepare for the summer. When was the workforce or succession plan report?
I didn't indicate a date. I think maybe the staff want to consider when they want. I don't think you've formulated a timeline for
Not
that
yet,
have you?
but I-
Yeah, so you need some time to think about that, but just a reminder that it needs to
Say
be...
within the next 3 months, so we could put a placeholder of April.
Okay. Mm.
About May, April seems to be very... a lot going on in April.
Yes, that's correct. Your capital improvement and operational maintenance
Right, so
programs are
we'll
going to be
do- so we'll
heavy.
do May.
There's going to be heavy topics.
How about the Facebook research
Next month?
next month?
Update next month.
I thought you were going to launch it this month and just the results, so how many people liked it by next month. Any other agenda forecast? Not, then the next meeting will be next month, Monday, February 7th. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.